All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to go way beyond the charts and the technical jargon. We're diving deep into the raw, unfiltered psychology of a day trader during a live session. We're literally stepping inside his head to see the chaotic, emotional, and honestly, super insightful battle that happens when real money is on the line.
And this is where it all starts. Not with a calm, cool analysis, but with pure, uncut frustration. These are the trader's own words, just moments into a session that's already flying off the rails. You couldn't ask for a better way to set the stage for the mental warfare that's about to unfold.
So, to make sense of all this chaos, we're going to follow his journey right through the session. We'll start with that frustrating beginning, see how he tries to find some calm by sticking to his rules, then watch the battle for actual profits, and finally, distill the powerful lessons he learns before we get to the day's ultimate takeaway.
Okay, let's kick things off with stage one, that frustrating start. This is where the day begins, not with a clear head and a clean slate, but with just a tidal wave of technical issues and mental roadblocks. What's so wild here is how it all just snowballs. It's not just one thing going wrong. First, he can't even log into his account. Then his software starts glitching out. And while he's wrestling with all that, he watches a perfect trade setup he'd been planning for just sail on by. On top of it all, he's got annoyances from his day job piling on. And the final punchline? He realizes he's been staring at the wrong chart data this whole time. Ouch.
And you can just feel the weight of all that right here in this quote. He's 2 hours late to the party, and he feels like his mind is completely shot. He thinks the day is a total write-off before he's even placed a single trade. That's the headspace he's got to try and claw his way back from.
So how in the world does he pull back from the brink? Well, that brings us to our second stage, finding calm in the rules. When he's faced with this total mental storm, he doesn't just give in to impulse. No, instead, he turns to the one thing that can actually ground him, his own system.
For him, his journal is everything. It's not just some logbook, it's his psychological anchor. He says over and over that the physical act of writing down his rules, that's what forces him to remember and actually obey them, especially when his emotions are just screaming at him to do the opposite.
We can actually see his recovery process broken down into a few clear steps. First, he just admits he's frustrated. He doesn't ignore it. Then, he goes straight to his journal to remind himself of his rules. After that, he reanalyzes the charts with a fresh set of eyes. And then, most importantly, he forces himself to just wait. He waits for what he calls confirmation.
So, what is this confirmation he's talking about? Well, think of it like a green light from the market that lines up with his strategy. It might be the price breaking a certain level or a specific pattern. The point is, it's an external signal, not some internal gut feeling. And that's what forces him to be patient and disciplined.
All right, now we're entering the arena. This is the active trading part of the day where the real battle begins. And it's not just against the market, it's against his own worst impulses.
And this is where we see two completely different versions of the same trader show up in one session. On one hand, he makes this impulsive short trade that he later calls a very dumb mistake. Just jumped in on pure emotion, zero confirmation. But then, later, you see him take a trade where he patiently waited for the setup to fit his rules, and he had a clear plan. It's a perfect picture of his internal struggle playing out right there on the screen.
But get this, even on his good trades, the fight is not over. Here he admits he got out of a profitable trade way too early. And why? Pure fear. He was just so uncomfortable with the idea of that profit on his screen disappearing that he couldn't stick to his own plan. It just shows you how powerful fear is, even when your logic is totally sound.
And man, he is just brutally honest with himself when he looks back. On one of those trades driven by fear, his risk to reward was just 0.8. That means he was risking more money than he could possibly gain. He calls it disgusting and a shameful thing. That level of self-awareness is pretty incredible.
So, this brings us to what I think is the most valuable part of the whole session, the lessons. The real profit for this guy isn't about the money he made or lost. It's about the insights he can pull from his own performance.
What's really crucial is what he writes down after the day is done, turning all that chaos into hard and fast rules. And the big theme? Survival. He reminds himself that if his confidence is low or his mind just isn't right, the goal isn't to force a profit. It's to protect your cash and live to fight another day. It all comes back to patience and perspective.
This one thought right here, it just captures his entire shift in mindset. He ends the day totally at peace,
realizing that real discipline sometimes just means letting an opportunity go. That fear of missing out, the thing that drives so many bad decisions, he's replaced it with an appreciation for just being patient.
Okay, let's wrap this all up with the day's ultimate takeaway. After all the chaos, the mistakes, the small wins, what's the single most important lesson that he walks away with?
It's this. The success of his session wasn't decided by his P&L at the end of the day. The real win was surviving his own emotional roller coaster, reinforcing his discipline, and turning a totally chaotic experience into real, concrete wisdom for the next day. And here it is, in his own words. His entire philosophy just boiled down to its very essence. It's a loop. You learn, you do, and then you learn again. The outcome of any one trade is totally secondary to the process of learning and getting better. And that right there is what separates a gambler from a pro.
So, we'll leave you with this question. Whether it's in trading, at your job, or just in life, we all face this exact same conflict, right? The battle between our rational plans and our emotional impulses. When you really look at your own decisions, who's actually in control?